Hey, Vsauce! Michael here. Action and danger.
Hello everyone, Purple Georgy here. Today I want to talk about probably one of the most legendary shows about giant robots fighting giant monsters. A show that was coming out in my childhood, and a show that in many ways was a pioneer for its era. I mean, I feel like there's not going to be a better chance to tell you about Sym-Bionic Titan. I mean, after all, Power Rangers were recently brought from grave by Fortnite. YouTube and, well, the whole world in general are becoming more cyberpunk themed. So there's not going to be a better chance to talk about Genndy Tartakovsky's Heat, which was coming out back in 2010. Some of y'all may have not been alive when this show was coming out. Okay, before we begin, I think you need to understand at what peak Sym-Bionic Titan was when it was released, and what disappointment it was when the show was cancelled. Like, for context, Sym-Bionic Titan at the time was airing with such incredibly popular franchises as Generator X, Ben 10, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Star Wars Clone Wars, and Total Drama Island. However, despite relatively same popularity, it was cancelled after first season and after 20 episodes. So today I want to go over the show to explain why it was so popular and why was it cancelled. Sym-Bionic Titan is a TV show about three teenagers who just so happen to be aliens. They come to Earth as refugees while their home planet is being conquered by monsters. I think it's important to establish right away that, unfortunately, since the show isn't finished, there isn't exactly a coherent finale to all of the characters' shenanigans. Because characters do go through an arc in this season, but because the coherent ending is just absent, it all feels like a sitcom, kinda. Especially because in the grand scheme of things, nothing really changes. The plot is basically main characters hide at Earth, the government is trying to find them, meanwhile main villain wants to kill them, so he sends various monsters who main characters end up defeating every episode. But what makes this TV show special and incredibly engaging to watch is the filling. After arriving to our pile of dirt, not only main characters already managed to beef with the Army of the United States, but also for some unknown reasons decided to go to school. And I understand that this trope was essentially used so the young audience would relate to the main characters more. Or it's some kind of reference to anime where 1,000-year-old demons typically go to school for literally zero reasons. Our main characters, however, Lance, Elana, and Octus, do have a reason. Their explanation for going to school is that they need to blend in, like to not attract attention in the human world, especially when they know Army of the United States and Men in Red are looking for them. But God bless American education, because nobody suspects this thing. Because main characters transform into mechas and giant robot most of the time, not even trying to hide. And in the end, none of the characters realize that. Out of all of the antagonists, only one knows all of the characters' true identities. Essentially, the whole season, characters are gonna live a double life. One where they're teenagers at school, one where they transform into a giant titan who fights creatures that come out from a wormhole in space and that are trying to destroy the planet. That was, by the way, not an Evangelion reference, that was a Voltron reference. The way they figure out they can transform into a giant titan, by the way, is done rather randomly, because essentially they come to Earth, they start figuring out the culture, how to blend in with humans. It is particularly funny, especially because in the first episode they come out to the parking lot and talk to some random lady while wearing their space uniforms, and she just screams. But then main villain sends a literal giant flock of fire to destroy them, and they realize they have to fight it somehow. And since their mechas, even though are pretty strong, can't defeat a monster size of a skyscraper, they have to try stuff. And so, mid-fight, Octus, who is by the way main character's robot companion, realizes that he has a built-in program that can fuse all of their mecha together and make them a huge titan. Bruh, so that's where the creators of Godzilla Singular Point got their idea. Yeah, this whole time characters accidentally had a program that can solve all of their problems by turning their mecha huge. Interesting. I mean, clearly the mystery of Octus's creation was supposed to be explored more in the second season, but we never got to that, unfortunately. So I guess now we're dealing with what we got. All of the fights with Titan Sym-Bionic just look epic. I can't really describe it in any other way. It looks very expensive, action-packed, and creative. In general, the whole concept looks very imaginative because a 3D Titan fights monsters who are 2D. And surprisingly, it looks very coherent. It's all done in a single, very unique art style, and it doesn't look like something is out of place. Which is incredibly surprising to me, honestly, because the show is quite old, you can say that, but the current shows, like especially the anime, which sort of do the same thing, they try to play with 3D items in order to save on budget, and it looks incredibly out of place. In modern shows where 3D objects interacts with 2D objects, it looks very out of place, but in Titan Sym-Bionic, it all looks like it's supposed to be together. I can't even complain, really. I also really like that each time, not only characters have to find a certain unique style to battle the monster, but they also use different weapons every time. Literally, I double checked, and I think the sword, which is like the most oftenly used weapon, used like 3 times in the whole show, and in every other fight they use different weapons, like spears, bows, shields, chain with a knife, nunchucks, laser weapons. There's literally a big arsenal, and every time they use something new. It's almost a shame that scenes this epic typically go after some school routine. Yeah, the decent amount of plot is going to be happening at high school, which is not necessarily bad. Again, at the time, that was an okay subplot, because, well, everyone was doing it. I would say, though, it is a little annoying, because background characters at school probably represent the most annoying cliches about school you can think of. Like, jocks being stupid and bullies, cheerleaders being pretty and snarky, nerds are socially awkward and can't talk to women.
Is this high school, like, in real life?
But the more you watch the show, the more you realize how intensely the show is trying to break those stereotypes. In the first episode where jocks attempt to bully Lance, he just literally beats them up, like, without hesitations. I gotta give him that, actually, because when it comes to the fight, he throws hands like nobody.
I'm left, I'm right, I'm right, I'm left, I'm left, I'm right,
If you think about it, the main characters themselves are essentially the biggest twist in stereotypes the show will show you. Lance is a typical cool, strong, emo boy who doesn't show his emotions. Elana is a lighthearted, funny, and kind protagonist who likes to help everyone. And Octus, or Newton, as some characters call him, is nerd. Anyhow, the 3 main characters essentially represent one of the most typical archetypes, but oh boy do they shine later in the show. I did already say that essentially anytime problem shows up, Lance is trying to beat up everyone because, well, that's the closest way to a solution in his head. And if at first it does come up as a stereotype because he's some cadet in Space Academy, he's supposed to protect Elana on Earth, and he basically just is a soldier. But later we do figure out that this is essentially a way to deal with his problems and his trauma. I mean, his father literally died in front of his eyes when he was like 5 years old. So yeah, there's a lot going on. For example, by the 4th episode, he completely starts hating on school because, well, it's a waste of time, and I don't blame him. So in order to freshen up a little, he starts escaping the house during the night and basically becomes Batman, beats up criminals, and surprisingly he feels way better after this, like he has a purpose now. Again, not only it reveals the character a little more, who's pretty much been acting emo this whole time, but also explores the past of him being a soldier, since school is clearly not for the person like him. And he easily sacrifices his sleep time for the activity that makes him happy in order to wake up in the morning and go to school. You know, not gonna lie, it is kinda relatable to me, and I feel like relatable to a lot of people when you do something you like instead of sleeping because you know in the morning you'll have to go to school and the day is gonna be shit. Sleeping is important, however, kids, because inability to sleep is what leads to him being captured by the monster, who is, by the way, quite disgusting because he gets literally inside of you from mouth. It's kind of disgusting, but also kind of imaginative. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. But of course, in the end, characters form a Titan and squish that bug along with his ship. The unfortunate part, however, is that Lance is connected to probably the most boring part of the whole show, which is the prequel. And yes, it is kind of unfortunate because not only this part actually shows us a little bit more of main character's home world, but also gives us the exposition of the original conflict of the main villain and what happened in the Len's childhood, which again caused his trauma, and how exactly he and Elana met. A lot of people did speak positively of that part, but for me it was just boring. Yes, the part where they talk about the hierarchy of their homeworld, where they talk about the army, how they coexist with monsters, that part is interesting. But it takes a very small part of this 2-episode backstory. Literally, the whole prequel basically just explains that Lance was put into a military school/academy after his father's death. I don't know what happened to his mother, she's not really important and never mentioned, so whatever. And what happens in this academy is that he's bullied relentlessly, and every one of the adults just tell him to man up, not acknowledge the bullying in the slightest. And the bullies over there, I mind you, not just some simple idiots who bully you just for the fun of it. No, they're relentless, like, unironically. In the end of the arc, they go as far as trying to kill him with guns! And then when main character steals the mecha to protect himself, the bully too keeps onto the mecha and continues to attack the main character. And yet, after all of that, in the end, Lance got blamed for it. Even though he obviously tried to defend himself and, like, tried not to get killed, you know? It's either all of the adults in this backstory are just stupid for no reason, or, I don't know, this military futuristic base has 0 security cameras. Actually, no, they're probably just idiots, because later we get a time skip, still showing us the backstory of Lance, where he's already a soldier, and he's being framed by a traitor claiming that Lance tried to kill his soldiers, and the king, who is the father of Elana, and who has been helping Lance this whole time, since they were friends with Lance's father, he just believes that Lance was a psychopath and a maniac, apparently, even though there's 0 proofs that Lance actually did anything wrong, besides the words of the traitor. And I get it that the traitor is like a general or something, but again, the king of the freaking nation believes that Lance is bad because, well, I guess because plot requires it, since later it's revealed the king actually trusted Lance, since, well, we know that in the main storyline he entrusted Lance with Elana's life when he sent them to Earth. Like, I don't know, this is just kinda weird to watch Lance being set up again and again, and nobody seemed to care, apparently. Maybe if this arc had more screen time, that would have made sense, if we actually got to know all of the characters and all reasoning behind every decision, but because it's really short and basically only 2 episodes, it looks very abrupt and very stupid. So, yeah, like I said, the only interesting part of this backstory that I liked is, well, the monsters and their invasion, who ended up capturing this very high-tech society as soon as they're just invaded with their armada. Actually, monsters in general in this whole show are incredibly imaginative. Because, oh boy, Genndy Tartakovsky brought so many interesting concepts. From a cute monster that can blow up a planet, to a literal horror show that infects you and turns you into another monster. Just really creative, I gotta give him that. Here, let's talk about one other monsters, which I particularly found really interesting, while talking about one of the main characters as well. Elana, who's a princess of main character's homeworld, for the most part was acting inspirational. Like, I can't really explain it in any other way. Like, she's a good person with a good heart, she always trying to help people, but for some reason she has this, like, thing where she's constantly trying to unite people and gives out incredibly, like, powerful speeches, and Lance constantly has to hold her back because her ambitions are always running ahead of her. It is particularly funny in the episode where the school is attacked by some goo monsters and the characters has to fight it off. In the end, when they found a solution how to defeat the monster, Elana goes to the speaker and gives out a motivational speech so the students could unite together and defeat the monster. But eventually just call to unite turns into a really long and, like, annoying speech, to the point where Lance has to stop her and, like, and tell her, like, chill, brah.
Just stop.
Well, what?
Too much.
Stop it.
seemed like this really well explore her past as royalty, but also really well establish the fact that she kinda wants to help everybody despite nobody actually asking her for help. And for the most part, she sees no problem with it until it comes to episode 13. In this episode, main characters encounter a frog-like disgusting creature who bits Elana in the middle of the fight. After that, it runs away and main characters have to look for it in the middle of the forest to eradicate it. However, while that is happening, Elana starts feeling weird and she realizes that she's infected because her body starts changing. But she doesn't tell her friends about it because she thinks she can deal with it by herself. Unfortunately, her friends realize about the infection a little too late because the creature starts controlling Elana when she's fully transformed into the monster herself. Not gonna lie, that episode scared me like hell when I was a child, because in general, Genndy Tartakovsky's design for this show is kinda weird, but the way he draws monsters is even freakier. But of course they have to take it to the next level. Not only Monster looks like a horror show, but also they have to spend the whole episode in the middle of the forest where it's spooky. The main character gets infected, transforms into a creature. Octus and Lens have no idea if they can even change her back. Like, the show legitimately becomes a horror for one episode.
It's scary.
Of course, in the end, everything's fine. As soon as they killed the original creature, Elana just changed back, learning the lesson that it's okay to ask for help, and declaring that she wants to go on a date now, because previously in the episode it was discussed that as a royalty she never got into private dates, and that now she would like to try. Cute ending, but I want to admit that I'm actually glad that romance is not exactly escalated in this show. There's a lot of hints that the characters might fall in love with each other or someone else, but it's never actually gotten to the point of actual relationship, except for one character. Octus is by far my favorite character, not only because episode with his arc also comes in with the most interesting monster, but because he, unlike everyone else, has a love arc, which is like actually interesting. I was surprised how invested I am with this love arc.
But when it's good, it's great, right?
So yes, like I said, Octus is an android who most of the time has to pretend to be brother of Lens and Elana or their parent. For the most part, he acts like a robot, but here and there are scenes where he's showing emotions. And you start to understand that he is not a typical android, especially when he actually points it out himself several times. Episode 14 starts with all of the three main characters staring into the painting at a museum, asking what each of them feels while looking at it. Each of the characters feels something new, however Octus doesn't really understand what Elana and Lens are talking about since he's a robot and he can't really see the metaphors in the abstract paintings. After that, we randomly cut to France, where everything looks fine, people are going on about their day, having fun in the nice weather, when they suddenly just stop. Stop moving at all. News about this phenomenon has spread around the globe, and main characters soon heard about it. Of course, they sent Octus to check what is going on, since this anomaly is clearly of an alien nature and it only affects humanoids. However, Octus soon realizes that it's spreading faster than expected, and before they knew it, this anomaly has covered the entire globe, stopping everyone. All of the living creatures just stood still, like the time was stopped. This episode is actually incredibly interesting and engaging because Octus is just left alone in a lifeless world and he has to find a solution before it's too late. It's also engaging because of the fact that typically whenever a monster comes around, main characters just form a Titan and can easily kill it. But right now, not only they can't form a Titan because you need all three of them to do that, but also you don't even know where the problem is coming from. Like, everyone in the world is just doing the mannequin challenge, and besides that, nothing seems out of the ordinary. Eventually, Octus does realize that this phenomenon is caused by some signal that is sent from outer space. However, all of his attempts to stop it are ineffective, so all he has to do now is just wait. The monster leader comes in and the giant bat starts flying around empty cities. And actually right now that makes me wonder how exactly did Galaluna even like prevent those monsters from destroying them originally, because it's said that the planet on which Elance and Elana were born, was under attack of those monsters for quite some time. Like, they tried to attack them before. How exactly they didn't succeed before, if monsters like that can just stop all human life from doing, well, anything? In the end, Octus damages monster senses that were sending the signal, main characters form a Titan, and of course shoot that bat to smithereens.
Wait, was that a Pacific Rim reference?
Beautiful. Just beautiful.
And in the end, the episode comes to an interesting finale, as each of the characters are now drawing their own paintings, showing their own individual views. Concluding that it's not important if you can understand the view of the other, it's important that you can understand it in your own unique way. Since in the end, the only reason why they weren't eaten by a giant bat is because Octus wasn't like everyone else. And now, let's talk about the episode where they talk about why Octus slowly becomes more like everyone else. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that love line I mentioned. The thing is, it's already been established that even though Octus is a robot, he doesn't act like a typical android. His technology seems advanced even for Galilean tech, and he has some sort of advanced AI which makes him act almost like an actual alive being. As a result, when he has to study with one of the cheerleaders at their house, they start acting more romantic towards each other. And no, I am not going to explain this scene.
Just trust me on this one.
This love arc is interesting not only because prior to that scene Octus was acting more robot-like, showing few emotions, but after entering a relationship with Kimmy, he started showing more and more laughter and other more complex human emotions which before he was struggling to understand. But also because Kimmy as a character turned out to be more interesting and more complex than I have expected. You see, just like in the prequels episode, she was just a typical bully character. She didn't have much of a personality besides the fact that she bullied one of the main characters. But after starting a relationship with Octus and receiving more screen time, we started seeing a more complex personality of hers. We're clearly shown that in general, she's a failure. She didn't achieve anything. She has bad grades and didn't achieve anything meaningful besides being a cheerleader. So you understand why she chooses to bully people, because that's the only way she can feel good about herself. And in a previous relationship, she wasn't even treated as a human being. Her ex-boyfriend, and it's clearly established, I mind you, just dated her for the looks. And after entering a healthy relationship, you can actually see her changing for the better. Like, that's actually a well-written secondary character. And her relationship with Octus are charming and cute. This is interesting because you can see a robot side glitching and becoming more like human. For example, there's an episode where a shapeshifter becomes a giant version of Kimmy, and they have to fight it in a Titan, and even though Octus understands that it's a monster, like Kimmy cannot be that huge, he still struggles to fight because, well, she does look like her. Oh, and by the way, I was gonna have a segment in the video where I talk about why exactly the show was cancelled, but unfortunately, material for it was kinda short, and not as exciting as many of you would have thought. Essentially, Gendy Tartakovsky and one of the Cartoon Network representatives gave same answer to why the show was cancelled, and the answer is quite stupid. Basically, they try to come up with a line of toys to sell for the show, but apparently they either didn't agree on the design or just couldn't make them for several reasons, and as such, cancelled the second season, which was already written at the time. I mean, the censor is kind of stupid, but it completely explains it on the other hand, because, yeah, most of those shows at the time were made pretty much just to sell toys. Like, that was a good marketing strategy. So, yeah. And, okay, I saved the best part for last. It's the antagonist, because, oh boy, the antagonists in the show are top tier. I already talked about the main villain, Medulla. He has an incredibly cool voice and incredibly nice hat. And honestly, I didn't mention him much because overall, he just seems like a main evil. And clearly, I feel like in the end, it's gonna be revealed that he's not even the bad guy. He's controlled by his hat, who's a monster, or something like this. Because, again, in the flashback, we've seen actual Medulla, and he was quite a nice guy, so clearly him becoming a main villain is gonna be some sort of mind control or something like that. My favorite antagonist of the three is clearly General Steel. He's just an angry, loud, old guy who is in charge of the US Army, and who is constantly being foiled by the teenagers. However, what makes him a believable and charming main villain is that, well, he's trying to capture aliens who are pretty much responsible for monsters coming to Earth again and again, so him trying to capture them again and again is just makes sense, and him being angry that he's failing also makes sense. Also, scenes with him are just, like, funny, so... He's a true patriot in a way you can say, because when in the finale main characters can't really do anything, because Octus kind of just broken, spoiler alert. General Steel just makes his own mecha and fights monsters instead of the main characters. Like, can you even hate this guy? And last but not least is probably one of the most impactful characters to the story, and definitely the most impactful villain, Solomon. He's in charge of a secret task force which controls and detects all the alien activity. Clearly, after main characters landed on Earth, he became interested in, like, what the hell are they up to? And honestly, out of the three villains, he was literally most useful. He captured main characters several times, managed to figure out what exactly do they do on Earth, and somehow even got his hands on tech from their homeworld. That plot twist, by the way, in my opinion, is like really obvious right now when I watch this. When I was a kid, I had no idea, I'm not gonna lie, but right now, I just understand that clearly Lance's father just works for their organization or their founder, so this explains not only how the hell all of those humans got hands on the alien technology, but also explains why Solomon didn't just killed those main characters. Clearly he's held back by someone. In general, in Lance's flashback, it was shown that his father didn't really die, but instead it was revealed that he stepped into the portal when he was trying to discover teleportation technology. Clearly he got stuck on Earth and established this whole task force in order to watch out for any aliens that also will be stranded on Earth. Also explains how this mysterious figure had been able to fix Octus, because clearly he most likely just invented it. Yes, I did mention that in the finale, Octus breaks, preventing main characters from transforming into a Titan and them trying to do stuff on their own. Of course, not successfully. You see, one of the final monsters that Medulla sent to Earth was an electricity feeding monster that would break any and all technology that it came in contact with. Of course, while fighting it, it touches Octus and breaks him entirely, enabling main characters to boot him up ever again. Thus, in the finale, where everything comes crashing down, General Steel starts literally hunting the main characters. Several monsters are roaming the Earth, destroying it because nobody can actually stop it. Main characters had to go in hiding because there's no way they can stop the monsters without transforming into Titan. Like, all in all, the last two episodes were very well staged and narratively very well played. Yes, the ending was a little childish, however, because even though the build-up to final fight was really intense, in the end, Octus just came around, and it's not revealed how exactly he got fixed. It's a cliffhanger that was saved for season 2.
I didn't really die.
But like I said, I'm pretty sure I was just Lance's father. Again, it all makes sense because he was described as the brightest mind Galuna has ever seen. So it just makes sense. In the end, I can definitely recommend this show. It held up pretty well after all those years, and not gonna lie, especially in case of writing and some visuals, it looks way better than many of the shows that recently came out. The scene they don't make him like they used to applies really well to the show because, in terms of storytelling especially, it was way ahead of its time. And if you didn't watch it, I recommend that you do because you're definitely not gonna miss out. And I think that is it for today. Tell me in the comments what else you would like me to review. Leave me a like, subscribe, and see ya!